inviting our next speaker, I would like to give you all a cue. What comes to your mind when you think of a word evolution? I'm sure it was a monkey and a man illustration that a lot of you thought about. But is that evolution all about? Definitely not. As much as we focus on evolutionary perspective about human physical nature, it is also equally important to understand how mental and psychological traits have evolved through the ages. I might not be the right person to talk about this, but Professor Ankit Gokkalgandhi certainly is. Ankit Gokkalgandhi is an assistant professor of psychology at Vivekanand Education Society, College, Mumbai. It's a great pleasure that I am his student. He is also a wildlife photograph enthusiast with a love for African savanna. I welcome you, sir, to address the gathering.
Yeah, uh, I'm just finding it difficult to start my video actually.
No worries, sir.
Yeah, I mean, it's not permitting me. I think it's some admin issue.
Sir, yeah. Like we have
Yeah,
given that, sir. Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
Uh, okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's great being here, and I really appreciate this initiative taken by the 3G school. And I really appreciate this slot that I've got to talk about a subject which kind of interests me. I'm not an expert. I will not claim to be an expert, but yeah, I mean, after reading this subject for quite a few years, I would say that it has really given me some insights, and I hope it would give you insights into the subject as well. I think you can see the screen, right? The presentation in front of you, everybody?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah. Okay. So, speaking of evolutionary psychology, all of us might have heard of Darwin, right? We might have heard of Darwin in respect of, biological traits. We have heard of Darwin with respect to, why don't we have tails? Why do we walk on two legs, etc., etc. But how often have we heard about why do we behave the way we do? Why do certain psychological traits, as Disha rightly put, why do they exist in us the way we do? I mean, we do indulge in sometimes irrational behaviors. We do indulge in behaviors which does not seem logical from a survival point of view. Our emotions like anger, like rage, jealousy, these are so-called unhealthy emotions, but they still do exist in us. And we often, you must have heard, when you speak of evolution, must have heard survival of the fittest, that line. But is that truly a right description of what evolution is? Survival of the fittest, or is it something else? So, I will just try to shed this, few misconceptions. I will try to dispel them today as much as I can. But yeah, first of all, let us understand what is evolutionary psychology. So it is basically, a kind of an approach, a paradigm. It's a theoretical approach which tries to explain. It does not give you solutions. It tries to explain why certain mental psychological traits such as memory or language or perception, and why do these adaptations exist the way we do. Now, what are adaptations? Let me clarify the term for you. Adaptations, what you see on the screen. Now, adaptations are basically solutions to specific problems. Like the fact that we walk on two legs is an adaptation. It is designed to solve a particular problem. The fact that you feel jealousy, let's say you are in a relationship, because man was speaking about relationship in the previous talk before me. So the fact that you feel, let's say, jealousy in a relationship, now that jealousy is, you can say, an emotion which is adaptive in a way, because it helps you to solve a particular problem. I'll come to that in this matter of time. So whenever we were living in the ancient environment, that is humans, when they have evolved across millions of years, all species have evolved across millions of years. When we were living in that ancient environment, that is on the plains of Africa, because as per one theory in evolution, we have originated out of Africa, right? So we faced certain challenges in our environment. We had challenges like getting food. We had challenges like rearing up our children. We had challenges like staying safe from predators. So we have, you can say, been born today with ingrained mechanisms, or when I say ingrained, I mean innate mechanisms since birth, that helps us, or rather helped our ancestors to solve those particular problems that they faced, right? Now, so if you were to say, if not a solution based approach, what is it? It is a functional approach. When I say a functional approach, it tries to tell us why does this behavior exist. It tries to give us distal causes. Distal causes means it is not giving us immediate causes of, okay, why am I feeling anxious or why am I feeling depressed. It is giving us distal causes. That is, if you are depressed or if you are anxious, there is a certain reason. Depression or anxiety or certain negative emotions or even positive emotions for that matter have helped your ancestors thousands of years ago to solve certain problems, and that is why those emotions have been passed on from generation to generation, and that is why you feel those emotions today. That is what evolutionary psychology will tell you. Yeah, next slide. Yes. So some mechanisms proposed by evolutionary psychology. So one of the mechanisms would be language acquisition modules. Like, why do we learn languages very quickly when you are, very young? Why do we struggle to learn any new language as we grow up? I think most of you might have experienced that when you were trying to learn a language, when you were in school, when you were very young, let's say till 8 or 10 years old, you could grasp language very easily. You could pick up new words very easily. But now today, as you grow older, if you try to learn a new language, let's say you try to learn German or French or any other language from scratch, you would find that, okay, it is very difficult for you to learn that language. You have to practice in a lot. You have to put in conscious efforts. But when you were a kid, you used to pick up language very easily. Some of you might have, read about Chomsky, the language acquisition device, which says that we have this innate module, like a mechanism, which helps us to pick this language. It's like a window. That window is open when you are a kid. Why? Because it helps you to develop communication and communicate effectively with others around you. Because as you are being brought up in a family structure, you need to communicate your needs as a child. You need to understand what other people are saying. So at that time, language acquisition is of paramount importance. But as we grow older, we have already learned the essential communication. Then whatever languages we learned is not necessary, but it is just useful. So after a period of time, this window of language acquisition device starts to close. And that is why we try to, we find difficulty in learning new language as we grow older. Then you have certain mechanisms such as cheater detection mechanism, which I'll come to that in some time. I will throw us a small task. We have something known as an incest avoidance mechanism. Now, many of you might have heard about incest. That is when we, marry or when we mate with someone who is related to you genetically. Now, the thought of that also evokes disgust in us, right? When you see on the movies or when you read something in any book where there is a mention of incest, let's say a brother and sister, indulging any relationship, the immediate thought that would come to your mind is, okay, how can that be possible? Like, that sounds very disgusting to me. The fact that it sounds disgusting to you has an evolutionary logic to it. Because if you know, when you mate with someone who's genetically very similar to you, the profile is very similar, what will happen here is that the offspring, which is coming out of that relationship, that is the child, will not have enough genetic diversity. So the child's immunity is compromised, and there are greater chances of the child suffering from any physical problems. So our brain is designed in a way which, on an average, this mechanism, which keeps us away from incestual relationships, works and helps us to avoid the possibility of a child suffering from any problems. Intelligence or sex-specific mating preferences. Now, when you say intelligence, what is intelligence? I'm not going into that because that is again a very vast topic. But why do we have certain abilities and why do certain differences exist between both the genders? Now, let me give you an example. If I say a male and a female, do they have certain sex-specific abilities? Yeah, they do. Evolutionary psychology says they do. Like, for example, if we say females are better remembering locations of objects. I think most of you might have experienced that when something in your house, you are not able to trace it, some socks or some handkerchief or whatever, you or your father are not able to trace it, the first person whom you would ask is mother, and somehow surprisingly she would always find it, right? You must have experienced that. Yeah. And it's like you say, okay, I was just looking at it, but somehow I didn't find this or whatever. I mean, you were lost and your mother just holds that key in front of you. That, see, I found it so easily. Now, that is what evolutionary psychology says, that experiments have revealed that women do tend to remember locations of objects, specific locations of objects. Why is that so? Because from an ancestral perspective, when men were out there in the jungles hunting, women used to go to specific locations in the jungles to pick out berries and fruits. So they needed to remember specific locations of certain trees or shrubs where they could find sweet fruits or flowers. So that is why this particular memory for locations is very finely tuned in women. But when it comes to navigational skills, that is understanding the cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, finding ways, right? Usually, men slightly have the upper edge. Why is that so? Because uh, when men used to go out to hunt in the savannas, they needed to understand the sense of direction, that okay, when I go out to hunt, and they would go long distances in a given day, and they needed to trace their way back to wherever they are staying, their cave or whatever that is, their settlement. So they needed to have a sense of direction about where to go, which side, north, south, east, west, following the the pathway of the stars of certain locations, the trees, etc. So they had that sense of navigation, which helped them to be a successful hunter, right? Yeah. Can I go ahead? Okay, let me give you that example of a cheater detection mechanism. Okay, if I tell you which cards would you turn over to test the rule is, if there is a vowel on one side, there is an even number on the other side. You have to test the rule, whether the rule is being followed or not, or whether the rule is being violated. If I tell you, flip over any two cards, the card where you see an alphabet, behind that card there would be a number, and the card where you see a number, behind that there would be an alphabet. So if you were to test this rule, that you have to see whether if there is a vowel on one side, there is an even number on the other side, which card would you turn over? E and 4. Okay. Yeah. So that is a very common response given. Most people would say the vowel card, that is E, and the even number, that is 4, right? Because you are looking whether that for rule is being followed or no. You are looking for confirming evidence. Now hold on for a second. I will not say whether it is a right answer or a wrong answer. Can I go to the next slide? Yeah. Now if I tell you, test this rule, whether this rule is being followed or no. If a person is drinking beer, then that person must be above 18 years of age. Let's say, imagine you are a bartender, or imagine you are like a security of a bar where people come to drink, and you have to see, your management has told you to keep an eye out for people who are underage and drinking. And you have to see this rule, whether this rule is being followed or no. That if the person is drinking beer, he or she has to be above 18 years of age. Now, which cards would you turn over to see that rule? Yeah, 16, okay, 22, drinking beer. Two cards you have to turn over, two cards. Okay, so yeah. Okay, let's say I'm a bartender and I'm turning over drinking beer to see what is the age behind that card. So let's say I turn the card and I see, okay, drinking beer, behind that there is someone who is, let's say, 17 years, which means the rule is being violated. So drinking beer would be the right card to flip, and 16 years would be the right card to flip. Why? Because I don't want that 16 years old person to drink what he or she is not supposed to drink. So I will turn over the 16 years old card to see what is the drink behind that card. Whether that 16 years old person is drinking beer, or whether he or she is drinking Coke, a non-alcoholic beverage. So if I turn over the 16 years old card and if I see beer behind it, which means the rule is being broken, right? So I can remove that person from the bar, right? So the point here is that many of you did say beer and 16 years. So here you actually performed well. Here you gave the right answer. So, but if you go to the previous slide, can you go to the previous slide? When the same logic, surprisingly, or rather I would say not surprisingly, expectedly, the same logic people are not able to use in this similar task, which is framed in an abstract manner. Most people would say E and 7. Why? Sorry, E and 4. That is what most people would say. Why? Because they're looking for confirming evidence. What evolutionary psychology says is that we are not meant to solve this kind of a problem, because this is an abstract problem. This is a problem where our ancestors didn't face these problems in the ancestral environment. But the second problem, the beer and the coke problem, that is known as a problem where some kind of violation of a rule, of a contract is being taken place. So you have to detect that. And that is an essential skill for us as human beings. We need to detect those who are breaking rules. We need to detect those who are violating any social contract. Why? Because that is threatening to your survival. Right? So that ability to solve the other problem, that is the beer and coke problem, is somewhere innate in you. You don't have to learn that. But here, this ability for solving such an abstract problem is not really programmed into our minds. The right answer would be here E and 7, because see, whatever is there behind the even number card, that is 4 number card, is not relevant to me. What is behind the 7 number card is relevant, because if I, let's say, I turn over the 7 card, that is the odd number, and if, let's say, if I find a vowel behind that, behind the 7 number card, I find a vowel, which means the rule is being violated. Right? So if I want to test the rule, I need to seek out disconfirming evidence. I need to seek out falsification of the rule rather than confirming the rule. Are you following? You need to seek out evidence which is contrary to the rule to test the rule. But here, most people turn the cards E and 4, they seek out confirming evidence which is not logically right. It's like this. If I say, if it rains, the floor is wet. That's the rule. Now, if you say the floor is wet, does that mean it has rained? No. What would you do? You would see that, okay, if the floor is dry, has it rained? Right? If you see in the news that the rain has occurred today, but the floor is dry today, which means something is wrong. The rule is being disconfirmed. The rule is being falsified. So you are not going to conclude that if the floor is wet, it has rained, because floor could be wet due to any other reason. Right? What would be unusual would be if the floor is dry and if it has rained, then the rule is being violated. Then you would wonder that how come that if it has rained, if the floor is dry, it should be wet, which means something is wrong. So you have falsified the rule. Yeah. Can I go ahead? Okay. Yeah. So basically what I'm trying to say is that your brain's anatomy, physiology, and certain processes which occur in your brain are those which have enhanced the reproductive fitness of your long gone ancestors. Now, when I say reproductive fitness, what does it mean? Fitness does not mean in the sense of being muscular or being athletic. No, we are talking about reproductive fitness. That is behaviors which contribute to survival of the organism and his genes or her genes, and propagation, that is spreading of the genes. Those behaviors are likely to contribute to genetic reproductive fitness. So if I say, if I care for my child, when I care for my child, I'm showing affection towards my child, I invest on my child, I am actually investing in the propagation of my genes. When I care for my nephew, when I care for my niece or my sister, they are also somewhere carriers of my genes, although indirectly. My nephew or my niece, somewhere to a certain extent, carrying copies of my genes. Maybe not as much as my child, but to a certain extent. So that is why I would even want to ensure that my nephew or my niece are healthy and they survive. Why? Because through them, my genes are propagating. But yeah, again, from a genetic point of view, I'm more likely to favor my child over my sister's child. Why? Because again, the genetic correlation is higher between me and my own offspring rather than me and my nephew or niece, right? So it's like this. Those who are inclined to be scared of strangers or to be scared of some strange looking animal, those organisms are more likely to survive. If you see the wild, if you ever watch documentaries on National Geographic or Discovery Channel, very often you would see that, let's say a deer gives birth to a fawn. As soon as the fawn is born, the fawn has not really learned in school what is a lion, what is a tiger, who is a threat for me. But as soon as the fawn registers that, okay, there is a lion or there is a tiger or some predator, he or she is likely to run. Why? Because there is some kind of an imprint in the mind of that fawn which tells him or her that, okay, that is some danger and that is a threat to my survival. You don't need formal schooling for that. You don't need to learn that, okay, XYZ stranger is a threat or a danger to me. So that is why if you see babies, small infants, they are often likely to cry when they see a strange male, especially a male. Like if a man goes to a baby and the baby does not recognize the man, he is likely to cry, or the baby is like, she is likely to cry. Why? Because in the ancestral environment, it is often strange looking males, males of outgroups of some other group, which are threat to the baby. So this fear of strange looking males compared to females, this fear which is helping the baby to stay safe, is there in all of us right from the time when we are born. So you would see a baby crying more by looking at a male rather than a female, more likely, right? Yeah. Can I go ahead? Yeah. Is an adaptation always useful? So when I say adaptations, I just say that adaptations are solutions to specific problems that we face in the environment, right? Now, sometimes certain adaptations, they might have helped our ancestors in the past, but they don't really help us today. Rather, they might be detrimental to us. How? So I will give you an example. If I tell you to go to a restaurant and have some kind of fatty foods like French fries or pizzas, compared to some bland food like a salad, you are obviously likely to pick the fatty foods. Why? Because the taste for that fatty, sweet food, salty food, which is rich in calorie, is somewhere, you can say, innate in you. Somewhere you are not able to control that. Why? Because those fatty foods, the preferences for that food, helped your ancestors to seek out foods which were rich in calories. That was good for them at that time when food was scarce. But today, when we are living in a modern industrialized environment where food is so easily available, and we don't really hunt and we don't really travel a lot to seek out our food, we don't have to travel miles and miles like how our ancestors did in the African savannas. So really what happens is you are living a sedentary lifestyle, and on top of that your brain is telling you to seek out rich foods rich in calories. And how are you going to expend those calories? How are you going to burn those calories? And that is going to lead to other issues like metabolic syndromes, like diabetes, cancer, weight gain, etc., etc. So there is a hypothesis in evolutionary psychology known as mismatch hypothesis, which says that your environment, that is a modern environment that we stay in, and your brain's adaptations, that is the programming in your brain, which was actually suitable for a ancient environment, they are not matching, and that causes a problem. So the next time when you reach out for a French fry, tell yourself that, okay, I like this. It is not, you don't have to feel guilty about that. Many people feel guilty that they are not able to resist that temptation of a fatty food. But somewhere it is ingrained in your mind, my mind, everyone's mind. Why? Because it helped your ancestors. But if you are more aware of the fact that how it has helped your ancestors and how it is not helping you today, maybe you might be able to regulate your emotions or your temptations. Knowledge sometimes is a very powerful weapon. When you have knowledge or when you have insights over a particular phenomena, that itself is enough to help you solve the phenomena rather than knowledge giving you the solution. It's always the solution coming from within once you're equipped with the right knowledge. Yeah, go ahead. So again, what happens is, this is very relevant today. Many people feel that something which is not natural is not good because we are not evolved. Like nowadays, I want to point this out. Nowadays, that many people are misusing the argument of evolution and saying that vaccines, the COVID vaccine, which is now currently governments are insisting upon, they say that COVID vaccines are not natural. That is why they are not good. Now, in cognitive psychology, there is something known as the naturalistic fallacy. Naturalistic fallacy says that it is wrong to believe that something which is not natural to us is not good for you. Yeah, I agree that COVID vaccines were not there. Vaccines were not there when we lived in the savannas. Vaccines came much later, right? But can we deny the fact that vaccines have helped us to eradicate diseases like polio or yellow fever in Africa, or you know uh, smallpox, which used to kill lakhs of people earlier? So when vaccinations are being criticized, there is a certain segment of people who would say that vaccinations are bad. You should not vaccinate your kid even against polio. Then somewhere they are misunderstanding and misusing evolutionary arguments to further their own cause. I would not recommend that as a person who believes in science. I don't have anything against people who are religiously inclined. That is not the question. The question here is that you have to keep your personal beliefs apart from science and what evidence points out towards. So the next time when someone says you should not go for a vaccine or you should not take the medicine because it is not natural, yeah, agreed. That is not natural. But can I say that is not helpful? No. Then look at all the statistical evidence which has really given us evidence of how yellow fever has been wiped out from an entire continent, almost wiped out, if not entirely, but reduced a lot, if not wiped out, from Africa. How polio has been wiped out from India due to vaccinations. So look at all the numerical facts rather than going by emotions, right? Yeah. Next. So I will not go into the technical part of this affordance management. So basically, your mind understands that when there is an event, when there is a person in front of you or any event, there are affordances. Affordances as in there are possibilities that the event or the person can be good for you or the event or the person can be bad for you. Now, I want to discuss this with respect to stereotypes or prejudice.
Sorry to interrupt. A general reminder.
Yeah.
You have a couple of minutes to wind up the session, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, last point, then I will wrap it up. So, speaking of stereotypes and evolution, often, why stereotypes exist? Stereotypes exist from an evolutionary perspective because we have categorized people from time immemorial. Why? Because we have limited information processing capacity. And stereotyping people, according to evolutionary theory, that is categorizing people as in-group versus out-group, us versus them, has helped our ancestors to stay safe from out-group members, has helped our survival. But does that mean it is justified? No. But it does make sense to understand from a theoretical perspective that why, especially during the pandemics, why was so much negativity towards particular religious members? Why? Because when pandemics come, they offer the possibility of death, right? Many people die, and death makes us more, you can say, salient about threats. So whenever there are people who are not belonging to your in group, but they are belonging to an out group, other country members, other religious members, you are more likely to, turned on by that switch which says stay away from them, right? And that makes you automatically cautious or prejudiced towards those people. But is that right from a moral point of view? No. But this is what evolution says, that happens because of these reasons, because that helped your survival of your ancestors, and that is why it is there today. Yeah, with that, I think I will wrap it up because we don't have time. You can go to the last slide. It has my contact details for anyone who might want to contact me in the future. Yeah, so I'm Aankeet Gokkalgandhi, and I am an assistant professor in Vivekananda Education Society, Mumbai. These are my contact details. You may contact me ever if you are fascinated about evolution and you want some kind of help or any resources. That is my email ID as well, right? With that, I will wrap it up. Yeah. Any questions? You can share the presentation. I think a presentation is there. I am permitting the presentation to be shared. Yeah. Any questions?
Sure, sir. We accepting, sir. So thank you so much. It was a detailed explanation of everything. Okay, we are getting so many appreciations for your presentation, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
So, like, we are getting so many requests for sharing the presentation as well. Definitely, we will share that.
Yeah.
And you can always find, find the same in our YouTube channel, 3G School of Psychology YouTube channel. The same session will be available in YouTube channel as well. So, someone is asking, what about plastic surgeries?
Can you be more specific in the question?
I don't know, like the person who posted the question, can you please? Okay, so I request, sir, we are running short of time, so I would request all the participants to please post your questions in our in the feedback form so that we will give that to our speaker. And
yeah, surely.
Can we do that, sir? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll answer those questions. I'll try to answer those questions. Yeah, but I would request that specific question should be there. I mean, if you say plastic surgery, I'm not against plastic surgery. If it is required for saving a person who's suffering from burns, obviously you need to have a plastic surgery, right? That is a personal nature. Evolutionary psychology does not offer any moral standpoint on any particular procedure, right?
Yes,
You don't
sir.
expect evolutionary psychology to say this is right or this is wrong. Evolutionary psychology just says this is why you behave, and that is how your ancestors behave, and that is why you are likely to behave in certain ways. Yeah.
So thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your time. And to honor your time, we have a e-certificate for you. I would request my technical team to please display the e-certificate for Ankit, sir.
Thank you so much.
This will be
I
mailed to
humbly
you as well, sir.